Hey everybody, Aaron Cowan, Sage Dynamics, and this is my review of the Gemtech Suppressed Bolt Carrier Group. Now, the Gemtech Suppressed Bolt Carrier Group is another solution for some of the problems that arise when you run a suppressor on a DI gun of any length. The shorter the length, obviously, the more evident some of these problems can be. You get a lot of gas back into the gun. I mean, it's a gas-powered weapon, so when you run a can, you're getting more gas. It's increasing carrier speeds because of that, and that gas comes back through the gas tube into the bolt carrier group, into the chamber, all the way back into the buffer tube. I know from my experience, sometimes that gas can vent in very inconvenient places, such as right there at the castle nut or somewhere in the buffer tube, and I'm going to get it in my eye, which, you know, on a range is kind of funny, but in a real-life situation, if you're using a suppressed weapon operationally, can permanently, temporarily remove your vision. So there have always been these issues with DI guns when you run them suppressed. There have been a lot of solutions that have been created, a lot of gas blocks, charging handles, things like that, but this is the first time somebody's taken a really, really hard look at the bolt carrier group, which to me makes a lot of sense because the bolt carrier group is the first place that gas is introduced into the actual chamber and the actual upper and lower receiver of the gun itself. The Gemtech system is really straightforward. It's a two position adjustment, which I'll show you, suppressed and unsuppressed. And on the suppressed setting, it is designed to vent all of that gas out of the ejection port along with, you know, expended rounds. Now, a system like that, you're adding another moving part to a firearm that already has a lot of moving parts. So does it create a reliability issue, or does it do what it says it does? Well, let's take a look. So the design intent is pretty straightforward. On the suppressed setting, we have lower carrier speeds and we have that gas being vented out the ejection port, which to me is a huge plus. On an unsuppressed setting, when you take the can off, you have normal carrier speeds just like you would have with any other bolt carrier group. So the bolt carrier group itself, as long as it's used correctly, doesn't unduly alter the function of the weapon. Running on semi-automatic suppressed, I did 2,000 rounds during this review. That's pretty much my staple number to review anything really firearm related. I didn't encounter any issues. There were no malfunctions, of course, which, you know, is not entirely surprising. Even running a suppressed DI gun with a traditional bolt carrier group, you shouldn't start to see malfunctions inside of 2,000 rounds with a quality weapon system. And I think most people who are going to spend the time and the money and go through the NFA process and get their tax stamp for the can and everything like that are not going to be using what I would consider a substandard or a less quality AR for this purposes anyway. But does the system work? Throughout the review process, semi-auto, you know, different situations, different conditions. Ran it at night, ran it during the day, and I bring up the night specifically because, you know, here in the South and even in the Midwest where I was, like, you get a lot of dew and condensation build up at nighttime, and that all got in the gun, and it didn't induce any issues whatsoever. So the gun was running into a lot of different conditions, a lot of temperature variances, things like that. And then, of course, me, just being me, I'm going to run it as hard as I possibly can. Started things off right and went ahead and did that 500 round burn down. And after the 500 rounds, let it cool. In fact, it got hot enough that the paint kind of just fell right off my suppressor. But I let it cool to ambient temperatures, threw a 30-round magazine in it, didn't have any issues at all. And then moved on to, you know, basically other vetting, so to speak, in the review process. Semi-automatic is great, but I really wanted to get a look at how well the bolt carrier group is going to perform under select fire. So I just went ahead and hopped on a plane.
Will illuminate upon contact with water.
Now, under select fire, running those, you know, those really cool full auto dumps, the gun isn't noticeably more uncontrollable, and I do notice, specifically talking about that carrier speed, even on select fire, running, you know, 3 to 9 or 9 to 15 round bursts, or even doing a full auto, like just dumping the entire mag on one trigger squeeze, the recoil is not significantly greater than a regular suppressed DI gun running on select fire. In fact, I'd say it is, to me anyway, a little bit less. I noticed that reduction in carrier speed even on select fire. All that gas is coming back to the gun just because of the design and because of the suppressor, but I'm not noticing significant enough issues. Now, is the carrier performing as designed? Is that gas getting vented out the side? Well, I'll show you now. Under select fire, you can just see how much gas is being kicked out of that gun. Under select fire, the BCG functioned as designed. The reduction in carrier speed, at least to my perception, aided in muzzle control, keeping the rifle slightly flatter than I've experienced with traditional BCGs. Vented gas to the ejection port is obvious, occurring pre-ejection in the firing cycle. Now, back home to Atlanta, continued the review. The review process, like I said, 2,000 rounds. I did 1,000 rounds of brass, and then I did 1,000 rounds of steel case. I used Wolf Military Classic and some Tula, both 55 grain. Even under semi-automatic, which I think a lot of people, that's probably what we're going to use it for, you can see that there's still a significant amount of gas being vented out of the gun. It's not really getting in your face. One of my biggest concerns was, since the gas is being vented out of the ejection port, well, my face is right there. So my concern was, is this going to be just a different way to experience the same problem that I've had on other DI systems where the gas vents at the castle nut or somewhere in that buffer tube? The gas is literally coming out right next to your face, but I think it's being blown out of the gun at such a significant degree that it's clearing your line of sight, so to speak, before it's able to come back in your face. Now, I wasn't able to step into a wind tunnel or shoot into 60-mile-an-hour winds. I think in any situation, that's, you know, physics being what they are, you're going to have an issue there. But in the situations I was in, the settings I was in, things like that, I didn't have an issue where I ever really got gas back in my face. And I think that speaks highly of the design. I think they put a lot of thought into this system. It's very well designed. Are there any drawbacks to it? The only drawback I really see to the system is the adjustment requires me to remove the bolt carrier group. I have to pull the bolt carrier group out, as I'll show you, and do that little adjustment. That bothers me. I wish the adjustment was on the outside, but I can kind of understand why they put it on the inside, just for safety's sake, for simplicity's sake. If the adjustment screw is on the inside of the bolt carrier group, it's protected from the ejection port, so nothing can happen. You can't have a situation or an atypical malfunction or something like that where that screw gets a half turn in it or it goes back to unsuppressed or what have you. So I kind of, from just a hard use point of view, I think they removed a potential failure point by putting that adjustment in the inside. That being said, even though I understand why they did it, I still don't like it. I'd like to be able to adjust the carrier with it still in the weapon, but that's just one of the situations where we're just going to have to accept the fact that I'm going to have to pull that carrier out, make my adjustment, put the carrier back in, and just carry on from there. And of course, once I'm running a suppressor, I can't think of too many reasons why I'd ever take it off. Now, just looking at the features on the bolt carrier group starting from the outside, you get an arrow indicator. When it's in suppressed setting, the arrow points at the S, good to go. And then when we actually break the rifle down, take a look at the features. On the reverse side, there's our adjustment. Use whatever tool you need to use. It's a half turn system. From unsuppressed to suppressed, throw it in the gun and go to work. Man, this thing's really dirty. Just like that. Unsuppressed. Turn it to suppressed. Throw it in the gun. And that's it. Now when you buy the suppressed bolt carrier group, it's just going to come to you as the carrier itself. It's not an actual group. So my suggestion is to take your bolt, firing pin, cam, cotter pin from your existing DI bolt that you're going to put this bolt into and to swap them out. Make sure you check your head spacing just to be sure, and then you should be good to go. I only ran it in one gun. I ran it in my Rebel Lightning Mod 2, but I did check head spacing and everything, commonality through all the rifles I have that are DI. No issue.
Under semi-auto, muzzle control is generally not an issue, though when suppressed, the felt recoil from increased carrier speeds can cause you to drift more off your POA than you'd like between shots. After 2,000 rounds, I can say that this BCG doesn't reduce recoil, but it does change how the recoil affects muzzle climb in a very positive way.
So, final verdict on the Gemtech suppressed bolt carrier group. If you have a suppressor and you're running a DI gun, get one. Take that bolt out, use it as an excuse to build another rifle. Take that suppressed bolt carrier group, put it in that DI rifle with the suppressor, and just run that. I think there is a significant enough advantage to the system, just based on my experience shooting cans on different guns over a period of time, that this is something it should be a must-have. Instead of messing with the gas block and worrying about the charging handle and things like that, let's just go ahead and fix what I'd say the introduction point, where the gas is actually coming into the chamber. Let's focus on that. And this suppressed bolt carrier group really does that. So if you have a suppressor and a DI gun, you need one of these bolts. That's my personal opinion. Can you get away with not using it? Absolutely. But this is going to make your life a lot easier, and it's also going to reduce the chances of firing suppressed causing issues. It helps control heat coming back into the gun, obviously, but the biggest advantage is it's going to punch all that gas out of it, and you're not going to get it in your eye when you're trying to shoot. And it's going to help with the carrier speed, which is going to cut down on the wear and tear of your rifle when you shoot suppressed. Now, if you're running a piston gun, you're already set up. But if you have a DI gun and you're running a can, I would strongly suggest this is the solution to go after instead of messing around with gas blocks and messing around with charging handles. I'm Aaron Cowan with Sage Dynamics. Suppress accordingly.